Owning any type of restoration business is demanding. Demanding of your time, your energy, and resources. And that's why we're here. This is Restoration Domination. If you're a contractor in water mitigation, mold remediation, biohazard cleanup, roofers, or public adjusters, you'll learn how to dominate using some of the techniques and strategies that our guests will share. We'll interview top industry insiders, movers and shakers, hustlers and hackers, and anyone dominating their industry. This is Restoration Domination. Hustle, hack, and dominate. And here's your host, Rico Garcia.
Hey guys, what's going on? So before we jump into the interview, I just want to make a quick little announcement here. First and foremost, the interview with Sam was absolutely fantastic. I had a blast just talking about sales and mindset and everything else. Honestly, I would say it's probably one of the best sales and mindset conversations that I've had in a very, very long time. Now, the reason why I'm jumping on right before the interview is because I just wanted to kind of forewarn you. Number one, we had a few technical difficulties as far as video was concerned. Now, my video is out the window, so you're not even going to see me throughout this entire podcast. You are going to see Sam because Sam had enough foresight to go ahead and record on a secondary camera on his end, which I'm very, very grateful for, because unfortunately, from time to time when you're recording virtually, sometimes data gets corrupted, buttons don't get pressed, things go wrong. It is what it is. More importantly, I'm not going to be on screen. So in case you're watching the video and you're like, hey, why is Rico frozen? It's because I'm not frozen. It's just a picture that we had to put up there. But meanwhile, enjoy the interview. Sam was dropping value bomb after value bomb after value bomb with regards to mindset, selling, who's a good salesperson, who's not a good salesperson, how to recruit. We literally touch on so many great, valuable things that I truly believe that you're going to get so much value out of this podcast. Meanwhile, do me a favor. Make sure that you comment in the comment section below. Let me know what your biggest takeaway was from this episode, and more importantly, what you feel you can draw out from and implement into your business, into your sales strategy moving forward. Meanwhile, enjoy the episode, and I'll see you. All right. What is up, guys? Today, we've got some real, genuine fire. For anybody who knows me, that's hung out with me, that's had a conversation with me, the one thing that I'm truly, genuinely passionate about, something that's in my blood, is about sales, mindset, and closing. And today, I dare to say that I probably have one of the best guys to go ahead and help us, educate us in the world of selling, especially door-to-door, the one and only Sam Taggart. Sam, thank you so much for coming on to the show today. Are you ready to help us dominate?
Yeah, dude, I'm fired up. I feel like there's so much like opportunity to share, especially like I have an uncle, I have a brother-in-law's dad, I have so many people in the mold, and Utah, there's a lot of floods and fires and potential earthquakes, and so like it's a big industry here, and to be on a podcast where I get to help not just the roofers and solars and pest alarm, like kind of branch out. I'm super excited. I feel like it's so applicable to so many industries, so happy to serve, happy to be on the show, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on. Yeah, one of the reasons why I actually started the podcast was I was actively, when I first started Ecotech Pro, which I own a restoration company here in South Florida. We also have a branch office in Atlanta. And I was just like actively looking for information, as much information as they possibly get, that could be applicable to our restoration industry. And there just really wasn't a whole lot out there. But then at the same time, there's also these little pockets, right? All of these, I believe very much in universal principles, right? Find what works in each and every single industry and then adapt that, right? It's like the Jeet Kune Do of selling and of building a business, right? Use what works, get rid of the rest. And that's why I try to reach out from, with other industries like door to door, roofing, that's kind of your jive. But there's so much about what you do on a day-to-day basis that is direct correlation to not only the restoration business, but anything that has to do with selling. So first things first, man, just give us a quick little intro, fill in some of the gaps, like who are you, what do you do, who do you help? And let's take it from there.
Yeah, so I have started knocking doors when I was like a little kid, like every little kid out there trying to make his hustle. Your parents aren't sitting there going, hey, let me give you allowances. So then I had to go figure it out. So I basically feel like most of my education life came on the streets. It was 11 years old. I was selling magazines. At 13, I was slinging addresses on the curbs, and I did that all through high school. I had a little business. And then when I was 2008, I got into alarm sales in Dallas, Texas, and went right into knocking. So I never ever had a W-2 job. What the book smarts tell you to do is go to school, get a job. And I just said, hey, I'm going to learn street smarts. I'm going to learn social skills, how to go build teams, leverage, finance, like the doing of life. And I call it lifeness instead of just kind of what school and books are going to tell you what's going to make you successful and happy. And 2008, I did alarms all the way through 2015. And then I was, top performer in that space at a large company called Vivint. They're now publicly multi-billion-dollar company. And then I got into solar in 2015, started doing that. I was the VP of sales, about 100 sales reps nationwide. And anyway, so did that for a few years. And then about 4 years ago, I started, just really my mission, which was to unify, up-level, and bring honor and integrity to the direct sales space. Because I felt like it was getting so much crap, you know what I mean? Like so many people out there were throwing mud on people that were, selling. They're like, oh, what do you do for work? Oh, I'm in consulting. I'm in the home service. Nobody wanted to be like, I'm a door-to-door salesperson. I'm a direct salesperson, or I'm a network marketer. I'm a whatever. And it's like, no, take that with pride. Like there's a lot of successful people that have built massive companies, and they learned it in the streets. That was a school of hard knocks, and you should take pride in that. So I kind of evangelized that for the last few years, and really my focus is to help with sales, leadership, and recruiting, and really just helping scale companies.
Right. And the thing is like most people don't realize like nothing in this world moves unless someone is selling someone else on something. A product, a service, an idea, a concept, a dream. Like it all starts with you having some degree of enthusiasm about what it is that you currently have that you want to go ahead and give off to somebody else. And it's so funny because there's such a stigma. Like nobody wants to say I'm a salesperson, or I'm a door-to-door guy, or I sell used cars. Like nobody wants to. They'll give you any different title other than salesman, right? Account executive.
Exactly.
You get a lot of the account executive stuff, but never salesman.
Yeah, we're the lubricant of society, is what I say. It's like you take away sales and the lubrication, the engine stops, it breaks. And you look at the economy and you're like, why are we shaming sales? If, like you said, salespeople weren't alive, then businesses would not exist. You know what I mean? Or there weren't any kind of salesmanship out there, you wouldn't be transacting in anything, and nothing would be marketed to you. Nothing would be, you wouldn't see value in any particular thing. So I think it's a beautiful art. Much like your bowl behind you, dude. I love it. It's a beautiful piece of art. Yeah, I like that.
I don't know if you know, I mean, I've mentioned this on the show before, but I spent the majority of my professional career closing high ticket sales on the phone. People didn't know, prospect didn't know who I was. They'd never heard of the name of the company. They never requested information. And we weren't selling magazine subscriptions. We were selling high ticket, minimum account you could open up was 10K all the way up. Like that was it. And now that to me is selling, because you're selling a non-tangible asset out of the blue. Yeah. You are no one. So the only thing that you have to work off of is your tonality, is your closing, your enthusiasm, and the degree of professionalism that you bring to that conversation, right? So my question, and this is a kind of a good transition here, what is it that you notice, number one, is the biggest hurdle that a new person going into the sales industry faces, especially when it's a door-to-door type of situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is just the mental roadblocks that people have in their own internal, basically their internal identity around themselves, around the situation. It's like, it's not necessarily customers that are the problem. I think there's an abundance of opportunities out there. And I think a lot of the salespeople, they blame oh, I have bad leads, there's not enough leads, people aren't listening to me. But I think reality, it's more of an internal problem where they're struggling to overcome their limiting belief of their self-worth. Like I can be great. I can be a phenomenal salesperson. I can find closing opportunities. And there are amazing people that want my service and product. And what ends up happening is they get rejection, and all of a sudden they assume the fourth one is a rejection. And because this pattern is creating this limiting belief, they've now kind of diminished their own expectation of themselves. They've limited their own potential. And I think salespeople are, we've all heard from a young age. It's like, oh, not everybody makes it out in sales. Not, 2/3 of businesses fail. And I'm over here like, well, people have taken that upon themselves subconsciously to say, it's okay because I'm in the majority if I fail in sales, so it's okay. And so they settle with mediocrity. And I'm like, well, no, what if you took on the identity? I can be in the top 30% of people, and I can take on a new identity of performing at a high level and beat the statistic. Because we find shelter in the suburbs of this statistic, if you think about it, and we get complacent. We're like, oh, cool, like I'm just going to assume everybody in this neighborhood or everybody that I call is going to be not interested, and we just start to find shelter in that.
So when you say sell with mediocrity, what exactly do you mean? I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, right? Because is it because they're not coming with enough enthusiasm? Is it because they're already coming to quote unquote that battle, that door, that phone call, that appointment, that estimate already half defeated? Is it that they're not using enough closes? Is it that they're not using enough certainty? Like what exactly is selling with mediocrity?
Yeah, so it's that they've already they've already dispositioned the outcome before it's happened, right? They go to that door, or they call that person, and they're assuming, hey, this person's a no, instead of assuming this person's a yes. And so if you switch that, and you said, I'm going to sell without this mediocrity of just, I'm waiting for somebody to tell me yes, because I look at like the low performers, the average people, they're going to talk to enough people to find somebody that's just interested in what they're peddling, right? So it's like, hey, I'm just going to go in with the intention of every single person is a yes. And until they've given me 10, 12, 15 no's, and they've really sat in the boxing rink with me, and they've really understood the value, and then they tell me no, I'm okay walking away. But what people do is they just take the first initial, no, I'm not interested. They're like, oh, okay, you're just another one of those people that aren't interested. And they're just on to the next, and they're playing the numbers game of just, if I talk to enough people, eventually somebody's going to be interested, instead of a above average salesperson takes the person that is not interested and turns them into a person that should be interested, and then closes them and shows that they were interested. As they walk that customer through this value ladder and this journey of objection blocking and framing and creating value and building new expectations and then closing and building urgency. And that's a above average salesperson. They're committed to that game right there. But the mediocre salesperson is just like, well, it's a numbers game, and statistically, if I talk to 100 people, one's got to be interested, right? Like, I'm like, no. Every single person is a new opportunity, to make a first impression, to go through my value game and close a deal. And I have to reset every single conversation. And I think, 60-70% of salespeople, they just get complacent and they just assume the no's and then get so stoked on a yes. They're like, yes, wait, somebody's actually talking to me. Yes, somebody's interested. And they're just like, it's like they're assuming, like it's almost like a surprise that somebody finally shows interest.
Right. And one of the things that I implemented a lot when I was managing very, very large boardrooms of just assassins that were looking, again, you didn't eat if you didn't have a kill. Like if you didn't close a deal, you weren't taking home a check. Period. So and again, guys would have the exact same thing, right? I mean, I don't know how many doors you can knock in a day, but there's a limited amount of doors that you can knock in a day. That number gets a lot bigger as far as how many dials you can make because you're not leaving your desk, but there's only X amount of dials that you can make. Even at your best, you're probably making 700 to 800 phone calls a day, right? Let's just use that as an example. Well, by the time that you're 300 calls in and you've gotten your face bashed in with no and no and no and no, it's very easy to say, you know what, this next phone call, I mean, even if they pick up, I don't know, maybe I just have an off day. What I would do with my guys is I would turn it around and I would say, listen, who's the top performer here? Who's the person that you want to have their income? And there was always, in every company, there's always a top earner, right? There's always that one guy, right? And especially everybody's kind of like, putting it out there. Like you can pick someone from the internet. They don't even have to be in your company organization. Well, let's just say that Tom, the salesman, is making $1 million a year. And that's what you're aspiring towards. Cool. You can reverse engineer that number. Now, of course, Tom has had, his experience. He's committed to the process of leading a person through the sale. He's got the work ethic. He's got all of these things, but Tom can only knock on X amount of doors. Tom can only shake so many hands. So that means Tom is also getting a lot of no's. Let's put a dollar figure on each one of those doors, those phone calls, when you reverse engineer it enough, and it's breaking down to maybe sometimes it's not a whole lot. Maybe sometimes it's $1.50. Sometimes it's $100 for each and every single no. But all of a sudden, what that does to the psyche is now you've got this switch that just turned on. The no, you turned it into an asset. You turned that no into something of value. You said, fantastic. You know what? I know the law of averages. Maybe my skill game isn't at 100, but I'm at 50. I know that this person right now, even though they said no to me, is worth $150 to my overall goal. When you look at it from...
You get paid for the no's.
Absolutely. You get paid for the no's. And when I would see it in people's eyes, they were like, oh my God, you're right. All of a sudden, the phone wasn't that heavy, right? Knocking on that door wasn't that bad. So, do you, in your training, when you're showing people, do you kind of use something similar to that to let them know, hey, look, each no still has a value in the grand scheme of what you're trying to pull off at the end of the year?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I just reverse engineer it just like you did. Each no is $150. Or, if you make $1,000 on a sale, it takes you 10 no's to get a yes. Then it's like each no is worth $100. So then I just look at I call it, how I train on this is I say, you have escrow and you literally are like, hey, $1,000 is an escrow. Every no gets you, paid building this escrow. And the yes is just releasing the escrow. Like it's kind of like you're building this and the yes is just releasing that kind of that account. But if you didn't get all the 10 no's and you didn't get the $100 in every one of the, building that up, then your escrow account's never going to release a yes. So start building up that escrow account so that you can have a release. That's kind of a more visual way to explain it. So I love that.
Right. So quick question for you. In your opinion, which one do you think is least likely to succeed? The new salesperson who just knocks it out of the park his very first day or week, or the person who is struggling for the first couple of months but sticks to the program? Long term, which one of those two candidates do you think is most likely to succeed?
It's interesting. So I've interviewed, a couple hundred people on a podcast, and I've asked a similar question. That's a way better way of asking it. I was the guy that sold 5 my very first day, broke every record, and then I got my face kicked in for like a week. And then that Saturday I almost quit. And I was just like, dude, this is so hard. And everybody's like, what do you mean? Like, you're already at freaking 10 deals and you're a week and a day in. I haven't done 10. I've been here for 3 months. It's like, and I'm just like, oh man, I sold 0 this whole day. Like, I'm so done. And it was like, it's that same philosophy of like that quarterback that never lost a game all through high school, goes and plays college, wins, on a winning streak, and then he loses his first game in college and he's just like, oh, I'm a failure, and he just wigs out, right? And I believe, like, watching statistically, the guy that knows how to endure some of those hard days and long days, and they understand the game of, if I put in the work and I get better and I show myself on improvement, like it's crazy. That year I finished just above average. It wasn't like I just had a really above average day, my first day, and then I did just mediocre, not mediocre, like a little above average. And the next year I did a little above average then, and then I just kept progressively getting better. And it wasn't until my 5th year that I was the number 1 rep out of 2,500 sales reps and, won all the awards or whatever. But it was year 5. Like, it wasn't just overnight. And I think that I've seen a lot of one-hit wonders. It's just like sometimes in music, sometimes in sports, sometimes in, and it's just because they didn't have to build up the mental resiliency to withstand really the hardships and the lulls. I find that in the entrepreneurship, it's like businesses that just blow up and they're like, wow, we had like $1 million first 2 months. And then it's like, it was just luck. Like, there was a lot of element of just, you had some fortunate, like, good in your favor and you had some momentum, but can you stabilize that? Can you consciously figure out why that was the case, and can you repeat it? And I think a lot of people can't repeat their results, and it's kind of unfortunate. Or they move to a new dial list, or they move to a new market, or they move to a new area, and and it's just kind of like, well, can you do it there? Can you do it with this? And one of my favorite games to play was, I was like, everybody would always think I'd cherry pick the area, right? Top reps always get slung, like mud thrown at them, like, well, you're a top rep because you get special treatment, or you get this, or you have this, right? I mean, we hear that all the time.
You've got the specialties.
Yeah.
You've got the buyers.
Yeah, you've got the buyers. It's like, are you kidding me? So I said, same thing. Like, I'd just be like, all right, I'm going to divvy out all the stuff, and then I'm going to let you guys pick wherever you want me to go, I'll go. And they would put me in the trailer parks, or they'd put me in like the neighborhoods that were just like a house a mile apart, and you had to I had to get a scooter, and I'd scooter to each house. And, and they'd be like, well, you're not going to, like, they'd almost just want to see me fail. And then all of a sudden it'd be like 4 o'clock, and I'd be like, hey, I'm at 4, where are you guys at? And they're like, oh, we're still at 0. I thought, what the fuck, Sam? And it's just like, I did it intentionally because I'm like, guys, people are people, and psychology is psychology. Your product's your product. You've got to be able to cater the value to their need, and you close. It's a very simple game. You've just got to master that language. I think of sales as like its own language. 1, it's a language you speak to yourself, and 2, it's a language, even though we're both speaking English to each other, it's changing the tones, the verbs, the way that we assume. So it's our own internal language just as much as the language we're speaking to the customer. And it works. And
it's having the ear, the closer ear. It's a real thing, people, right? You have to listen to sometimes it's more important to listen to what the customer's not saying than what the customer is saying, right? And that's really important.
That's the understanding the language. That's what I'm saying. It's you. If I speak to you in español, no sé si habla español, pero si no entiende español, no tiene el oído que... Vos sos Garcia, Ricardo. Yeah, I was like, well... But like, you know what I mean? If I just started speaking Spanish, you didn't understand. Your ear wasn't picking up like the everything, right? You're like, I got that word. I got gato. I know that's cat. Okay, cool. Like, you're getting little chunks. Just like in sales, like you said, it's the body language, it's the ear, it's the unsaid. It's them when they pause and they look up and they're like, huh. You're like, got him. And you're just like, but like a novice sales rep is going to be like, wait, I didn't catch that whole like pause, look up, like thought, head nod, internal like digestion, and now I know I can keep going versus okay, I should or this like, oh man, like, and you're like, oh, now I know I need to kind of overcome something's going on internally there. Let me play with that. Or you see husband over here like, honey, just stop talking to the guy. You know what I mean? And you're like, okay, how do I handle this situation? Husband's over here contradicting this, and okay, where do I go now? How do I block this? And it's almost like
trying to figure out, number one, is who's actually calling the shots, or did he just bark from the kitchen because he knows that if the wife wants to jump on it, he's not going to rest for the next 7 days until the deal is signed, right? There's a lot to unpack there. So let me ask you this, in your professional opinion. This is going to be a tricky question, right? But I always like to hear everybody's responses. In your tool belt of closes, what do you believe is the most powerful close above all else?
It's funny, I actually used this to hold up my ping pong table, so it's all beat up, but I just happen to have one sitting here. But it's ABCs of Closing. It's a book I wrote. And it's funny, because everybody asks, and it's literally, it's A, assumptive close, B, bandwagon close, C, the competition close. And so I just went through the alphabet, and I said, here's all the different closes I've used. And I just kind of mapped them all out. But everybody asked me that question. They're like, what's the best close? So I actually look at this like fighting. So think of like a formula of closes, not so much just one close. So my formula that I use basically every time is I call it the 3 questions, 3 requirements close. So there's like close 1, comboed with the stack close, which is close 2, comboed with the silence or the if-then close. Then I combo it with the email close. So let me give you this in a very nutshell. So think of it as like here are the 4 closes, because closes, people think of it as a closing line is like, well, do you want to do it, or let's get you started today, or what's your credit card? Like, just there's one close. And I'm like, no. Closing is a series of closes. And so if you just say, what's your favorite close? I'm like, well, I mean, it depends on the scenario. But I'm like, what's my favorite combo? Like right, jab, 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 upper hook, right, kick to the nuts. Like that being my close. And that is a knockout every time. I'd go, let me ask you 3 questions. Do you consider yourself like a vocal person where if you like a product or service, you tell somebody? And it's a tie-down type question. And then I go through 3 requirements. I'm like, hey, in order for me to do business with you, I got to get something out of this too. For me to give you this special deal, I got to get something out of this. So it's a pullback. So you're tying down some questions, and then you're pulling back with some questions. You're like, hey, if I were to, ask, like, would you be able to refer me to like 3 or 4 people at the end of this? That's one big thing for me. Maybe put the sign out in front of the yard, or hand out my business card, or post on Facebook, or give us a review, or whatever. Like, you've got to ask. It's a win-win.
You're future-pacing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm.
Future-pacing them. They're already signing.
They're already signing. Exactly.
Process. Right. Okay.
So what this is doing is it's tying them down. It's future pacing and also pulling back. And then I say the stack. So I've created value. I'm like, here's all the product or service. And then I'm like, look, because you're doing these 3 things and you're helping me out, I'm going to discount this, I'm going to discount this, I'm going to discount this, and only have to pay this much. And then I say, so if all you had to do was pay this, and I did all this, I give you this, I give you this, I give you this, and you got this, and you got this, and you got this, then what would be any reason in the world you wouldn't do it today? So that's an if-then close. And then they would simply be like, I guess there wouldn't. So then I simply go to the email. So what's the best email for you? Or who do you want it to call? Or, like right then I go into more of like, let's start filling something out. And that's like an order sheet close would be another term for that. So anyway, that would be a long-winded answer. But yes, I love talking closes. I wrote a book on it.
Well, yeah. I mean, which, by the way, where can we find that book?
You can get it on the D2D Experts.com. Or you can get it on Audible, Amazon, wherever.
So Amazon, great. So for those listening to the show, I will go ahead and provide an Amazon link to the ABC. What's the name of the book again? ABCs of
Closing.
ABCs of Closings. Link will be in the show notes as well as in the description, in the video description below. So my personal close, and I won't have a long-winded answer like that.
No, I want to hear yours. Yeah. I'm sure that everybody has an answer to this.
This is, I take sales, and this is probably why I'm never going to be the best sales trainer in the world, because I oversimplify it to where it's just dumb, where it's just stupid. My best and favorite close is the silent close. It's too uncomfortable. You have to train people to get that uncomfortable, but that's it. Now, of course, you're absolutely correct. The close is the climax, right? Everybody always wants to talk about the close, right? Like, oh, I'm such a great closer. Yeah, but you got your face bashed in for like 45 minutes on the sales call, right? And that whole time you were in the trenches. Like, you had to take your time with this thing. You had to use the right intro. You had to use the right tie downs. You had to be box closing the entire time you were here, right? You got which for those of you that are listening who are not familiar, box closing is essentially just a term for eliminating potential objections that you already know are going to be coming up, right? So you have to do all of these things right to then finally get to the point where it's like, okay, Miss Susie, what do you think? Right? Here's the order, right? But for me, the silent close has always been the most powerful, because on a standalone statement that you can say at the end of a presentation, percentage-wise, I've noticed that is the one thing that is going to give you the biggest telltale as to someone is going to buy or not. And it's usually always boils down with, and you got them when you hear the, right? Like when you hear that sigh, that's when you know that you have the deal. That for me has always been one of my favorite closes.
I love that. No, you just made me think of a new concept I want to start writing about. And when you call it box closing, I kind of think of a sale as like a road map, right? And so you kind of have like your process of your presentation. You're like, yeah, I talk about this first, and then I talk about this first and second, and then I talk, and I was like, what if you called it like fence staking? Like what you're doing is you're creating a good barrier, a good fence to not let these objections come in through your presentation. You're actually putting up walls, basically sheltering your roadmap so that they don't deviate you off course. And they're like, nope, we're going to go down this rabbit hole of objection. And you're like, no. And if you properly stake fences throughout protecting this roadmap, the customer's not going to naturally want to derail you because you've already preemptively overcame some of their potential questions and derailment. I love that. And I just thought of that concept. Anyway.
I saw an Instagram post that you did, which, by the way, for those of you that are not following Sam, you got to go ahead and give him a follow. Again, I'll go ahead and I'll link down to his Instagram handle and to his website in the show notes, as well as under the video description below. But I saw a quick little story that you were with, oh my God, The Clever Investor. So I guess you guys were doing this thing, which, by the way, must have been an awesome event. Sorry I missed it. But I did catch a little Instagram thing where you were talking about, you were basically going through the sales process, right? And you had like an A on the board and a B on the board, and you were talking about having to get the customer to a certain range. Do you know what I'm talking about? And can you expand on that?
Yeah. So you think of it as like your fastest way to a sale. It's like the straight line method from Jordan Belfort. It's like you're at A and you need to get them to B. So think of this as there's a straight line road, right, that goes from A to B. And what ends up happening is we tend to kind of go on this loop-de-loop of switchbacks, and you're like, wait a minute, can I go straight, or could it, sales don't naturally just go, let me go through my presentation, it's verbatim and we never talk, and it's just like boom. And so what you're doing is you're building them out of a 3 tens of certainty. And what your goal is to say, if I can get them a 10 out of 10, on me, meaning like they know that I'm the right fit for them, the company and the product, they'll buy. Because if they're certain about the company and they trust like you're going to take care of them and you're ethical, and then they trust the product is going to do what it says it's going to do, and it's got value and it's exceeding the value of their dollars that are sitting in their piggy bank, then they'll transact. And there's kind of a whole roadmap to this, and it would take me hours to go through it. But there's different elements of the presentation. There's different elements of the pre-frame and the intro. There's different elements of the pre-close and close and post-close. You know what I mean? So it's just how do you properly roadmap your presentation? And if you think of it as pretty linear and avoiding getting into the friend zone where you're kind of like drifting into who knows where land, you start talking about like
being out in Pluto.
You're just off. Yeah, you're on Pluto, and also just avoiding, but allowing some ebb and flow. You've got to allow, and this is where a lot of people, when they construct a presentation, they put a PowerPoint together, and what this PowerPoint doesn't allow for is really powerful question-based selling. And so, a lot of people don't get trained well enough because their presentation doesn't have empty space, allowing for customer to interact and customer to really, think and you challenge them through really good questions. And I teach a principle called the Inception Shovel, and it comes from the Leonardo DiCaprio movie Inception. And it's a dream within a dream, and what they're doing is they're implanting an idea in that person's head by putting them into a dream, and then they architect a new scenario, a new reality. And I think of sales as a very similar way to do that, is you just basically asking them the right questions by implanting the idea and letting them dig. Because what happens is salespeople are often the ones digging. They're the ones kind of doing all the labor. And I'm like, well, why don't you let them dig and just ask them the question, give them the shovel and say, you dig. I'm tired. And then at the end, they're like in this big hole, and they're like, wow, I'm already down here. Like, it's pretty dark and lonely down here. I guess I'm too deep. You know what I mean? I got to do it. And, not coming out of this one. And, so for me, I look at it, there's a lot of art into powerful frameworks to your sales presentation and your pitch. I look at the sale as 3 parts. You have the pitch, the presentation, and then your post-sale, which is your follow-up and upsell, referral, confirming, all of that kind of piece, depending on the ticket you're selling. And I've sold anything from $100,000 coaching packages to to $15 curb paintings. You know what I mean? It's just a whole scale of range. And in curbs, you're just like, well, do you want black on white or white on black? And I love the option close. It's one of the best closes. And, it's a yes or yes answer. So you're like, do you want white on black or black on white? Hey, and I'll pay cash or check. I'll pick it up right now. And that's the assumptive close. And you just turn around and walk away. And if they stop you and they're like, wait, then you're like, and you just don't even give them time. It's like, I'm going to turn around, walk away, start painting your curb. And it's like the fulfillment right there. There is no like post. It's like you walk back up and you're like, okay, I need my $15. Anyway.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, so so we were talking about the 10-10-10. again, so Jordan Belfort, he's got his straight line system. He talks about, the straight line close and about, getting people on the 10, 10, 10, 10 on your company, 10 on your product, 10 on yourself. Right. And the interesting thing is, which honestly, this was a presentation style that was around before Jordan Belfort was even around. Like, I think he kind of coined it, but it was already like coming down the pike. I mean, investors, brokers were using this presentation for decades before that. But he does have a very good way of illustrating, right? It's straight line. You can visualize it. And basically that same fence mechanism that you were just mentioning now, right? Where you're still giving it a little bit of range for natural conversation, for those golden nuggets to kind of make themselves evident from what the customer is saying. But you're also looping back around, and that's the term that he uses. He calls it the loop, where once you ask for the close, and whether this could be a tie down, a close, whatever it is, and they're not there yet, right? It's like the tumbler in the lock. He just goes back around and makes sure that he touches on each one of those closes. For me, till this day, the way that I sell, even when people are calling me out for restoration work, it's usually always the same. I have a company close, personal close, company close, personal close. My pattern is always the same. Like, I'm always giving them like, hey, this is why you should do business with me. And then I'm like, hey, look, this is what Ecotech Pro does, right? And then I go back to the me and then the company, back to me and back to the company. And I'm constantly doing that loop until all those little locks fall into place. And then boom, that's where the sale happens, right? So it's just a really interesting concept of what that is. Do you feel that new salespeople don't have enough confidence yet actually, let me back up and rephrase this. Do you feel that a better salesperson is made by someone who cares too much about the deal, or the person who cares less about the deal?
Cares less. It wasn't until 3 months in, when it started to click for me was when I learned this principle. And I was 18 and nobody had ever taught it to me, and you can't really, it's hard to explain. You're like, well, just care less. Well, I care about getting sales. What do you mean care less? Like, I want to make money. Like, I need to care. And they're like, well, pretend like you don't care. They're like, pretend like you don't care. And I was like, what the freak? Like, what do you mean pretend like I don't care? How do I want them to buy it? What do you mean I don't want them to buy it? So I call it, there's elements of passively persistent. There's an element of, I call it when my first way I called it was I just have to bring out cocky Sam. And I've changed the way that I've worded and trained on this since, but I just remember the 18-year-old version of me selling alarms, and I was just like, cocky Sam's like, well, if you don't get it, whatever, I don't know, I'm just going to sell your neighbor because everybody in the freaking neighborhood wants this. Like, and I'd come off like that, and they'd just be like, oh, and if I'm just like, oh, yeah, you don't have to get it, I don't even care. Like, at the end of the day, I do so many of these, I'm making so much money, I don't even and it just, and I'm exaggerating it a little bit right now, but it's
the truth. And this is and the reason why I asked that is because it tied into the previous question that I asked, and we went off on a little closing tangent there, which is, who's the better salesperson, who has who's more likely to succeed, right? It's kind of like a yearbook title, right? Like, who's more likely to succeed? The person who has a blow up first week, or the person who's getting his face kicked in for the first 3 months, but he sticks it out, right? Typically, as a general rule of thumb, based on the people that I've seen, the person who sticks it out, right? The person who just knocks it out of the gate right from the beginning, it's like, if the moment that they get some adversity, they're like, oh my God, this really, really sucks. And then they're off to the next thing. The other thing is that I've noticed, which stands to be true, is the art of not caring, right? Which is weird because, of course, you care. I mean, if you didn't care, you wouldn't sell anything, and then no one would eat. The customer wouldn't get what they want, right? So, of course, you need to care, but there's so much power in the willingness to walk away from the deal, right? The willingness and to have that aura about how it is that you transact. One of the reasons why I think, so we built our business, which is ironic. We built our business entirely on cash deals. Like, I didn't even know what an assignment of benefits was for the first year and a half. Right. And we were doing really, really good numbers. Now, The reason for that, I think, is number one, I didn't know any better. So all I knew how to do was just ask for the order and shut up. And either they would say yes or no. And then based on whatever that response was, I would go ahead and continue my tap dance, right? It was like, Chicago, razzle dazzle them. So, but that was kind of the thing. And, but I think that what the secret sauce was is I was always willing to walk away because I always knew that there was the next person that I can go ahead and that wanted to go ahead and do business with me. So in your opinion, do you think, how do you instill that in a sales rep? Because as an owner, I can very easily do that. I could choose who I want to work with, who I don't want to work with, what money I feel is not good money, right? So I can kind of make those decisions on the fly. However, a sales rep though, like number one, he's after the commission. He needs to eat, right? And then number two, he's also got a boss, right? He's got a manager, a sales manager. Like, why didn't you close more? So there's this added pressure to sometimes not be able to be who you are, right? To express yourself fully, to be like, hey, I am, like you said, cocky Sam, right? So how do you train that in a new sales rep?
Oh, that's the question.
These are good questions, bro. I don't know, bro. These are fucking fire questions, bro.
Yeah, that is a good question. Here's a thought, and this probably is dumb, but I'm throwing it out there. You give the guy $10,000, and you're like, "Hey, your bank account's full. Now go out and then I know that you've got a for sure sale on your next deal. So on this deal, you shouldn't care because I'll give you the money either way, and the next deal. But if you don't, I don't know. Like you psychologically have to trick them. Like you have to somehow fulfill their financial needs and their sales goals needs as if they're already hit, but then you have to somehow build some social pressure for them to hit just numbers and volume. But my way of doing it was just bring out the cocky Sam and really build in this whole a couple lines that I would use would just be like, hey, you can always call the 800 number and then they'll sell you. They'll tie my name to it. We make more money if you do it that way. I'm here now. I'm giving you a deal. So I don't care either way. I win. And I had to play that card. I'm like, just call I was not the card in the flyer guide. So one way you train them is you don't give them a business card. I never gave my guys business cards. They never got to get, it was, you don't leave a card. There is no coming back. And this mentality of I close now or I don't come back. I know it's probably bad because it created bad follow-up habits, but at the end of the day, it helped my guys become better closers because it was there is no going back, so you better effing close them. And so I would just say, hey, look, I don't have cards and stuff. I'll just jot you down. I don't want to give out my phone number because I get a call every freaking 5 minutes because everybody obviously would want it. The more they think about it, then the more they'd want it. And then I get calls all the time, and then I'd be driving around literally all over the state trying to help everybody. And then I'd be, I got family and I don't want to deal with that. So I'll just give you the 800 number and you can call them and whatever they want to work out with you, let them work it out with you and you just pay a lot more. But that's cool. They'll tie it to me. You're already in the system. And I would just say something like that. And then they're just like, well, no, it's well, I don't care. Either way, I win. You're going to do it. So if you're going to do it, wouldn't you rather do it cheaper and help you out? And I'll do it now. And we'll can we just do it? It's or just call. I'll make more money. It's great. I'd just love you to call. It'd be great. And I just would come off with this attitude. I don't know how to train that. It's how do you, it's just this abundance.
One thing that I think that the brokerage industry got really right is really train people to fake it till you make it. That was the one thing, and it's an attitude and it's a thing. And look, some of these cats were starving for months until they got their licenses or they got this or they got that for months. I mean, rough stuff. But then they would have to go into that first meeting, that first phone call, whatever it was, as if they had already made it, right? So it is, I call it mental masturbation. Again, this is probably why I'm never going to make it mainstream because of my terminology, but you gotta mentally masturbate. You gotta get up every morning and be like, nope, I'm good to go. This is who I am. I am not a reflection of my current bank account. I'm going to go ahead and knock on doors and I'm just going to say, hey, look, this is who I am. This is my product. It's a great product. Take it or leave it. It is what it is. Ask for the order. Shut the fuck up. You're done.
I like that. I mean, it reminds me of kind of the Brian Tracy training where he's like, I'm the greatest salesman in the world. I'm a closer. I'm a, and it was that self-talk. And, I remember days where I was just getting my face kicked in, and you have to mentally masturbate mid doors. You're just like in the streets, and you're in a spot where you're like, crap, I'm getting beat up. Shift the state, change the frame, bring some gratitude, bring in some self-talk, and knock the next door. You know what I mean? And I think too often that I'm starting a new academy called Street Smarts. And it's stuff they don't teach in school. They don't teach you how to get knocked down and get knocked back and get yourself back up again. And that element in sales teaches you that a lot. You get knocked down a lot. And if you're not getting knocked a lot, then you're probably not working hard enough. You know what I mean? It's like that's just part of life. And so I like that mental.
And the one up that you have on everybody, like once you can get familiar with the skill and just get comfortable, right? A lot of the magic that happens in selling is just really being comfortable, right? And just learning. Even the greats have a bad conversation every once in a while. Even the greats have a bad door knocking experience. Like it's inevitable, right? Like and what makes you really good is being able to walk away from that phone call or from that estimate or from whatever it is that you're doing and saying, man, you know what? I forgot this one little thing in my presentation and I took it for granted, and this is why I didn't. Like going back and analyzing what it is that you did without allowing it to haunt you into the next transaction is part of the magic, right? Like having that freedom is really amazing. So Sam, talk to us about because you're like all over the place. Like I see you doing all sorts of training. So talk to us about your coaching, like how you're helping companies grow. Like what does that aspect of your business look like?
A lot. I mean, I do all sorts of things.
Right. What's like the pillar? I mean, as far as the trainings are concerned.
Yeah, I mean, the main piece that we train on, is that what you're saying? Like, what do we mainly focus on? Yeah. I was like, I have two tech companies. One's like a texting automation software. I have a recruiting software. I have a, all real estate side of things. And anyway, the main thing I help people with is a simple formula. And I break it down to the ridiculous. If I can help you get more reps, so recruits is the first piece of the formula, and I can help them get more opportunities, meaning motivate. Like the problem is your people just aren't like you said 800 calls, and I'm like about to go to my sales guys and I'm just like, you guys are making 800 calls, you're only making XYZ. You're just not making enough shots on target. And then I can increase your closing percentage through better sales training and helping your guys sell more. That'll increase your business. And there's a lot of nuances and playbooks and frameworks and systems and SOPs that go into all that. But that's the basics. Just get more people, get them to talk to more people, and get them closing at a better percentage, and you make more money. And that's kind of the real basics of my business.
So how much does it cost to hire Sam?
I'm not cheap to go out for the day. I mean, the main thing I would say come to me, and I host a business boot camp. That would be like the main thing. Would come to one of our events. And so every month we do a business boot camp where we teach that framework and we help businesses scale. And we've now had over 800 businesses come through our boot camp, and it's been awesome to see the results. I mean, I was on a mastermind call. I have a CEO mastermind. We're all going, like this guy texted me right now. We're going to Guatemala in a month and doing cool stuff. But one thing he said, he's like, I came to your boot camp. I signed up for a little bit of the coaching. We do some consulting and coaching. And, he was doing 10 a month last year at this time. And this year he's already on track to do 140 this month. And just to see, and in millions, that's probably, I don't know, 8 million this month. You know what I mean? It's not like a little ticket. So what's crazy is seeing people just implement that simple formula and going through our playbook and really understanding how to grow like that, and not just grow by 10% a year. Like the companies I work with, I would say 80% of them in 6 months I can double. And it's not like a hard formula. And so I would say it's $2,500. They come to our business boot camp. They can bring a couple people, maybe key leaders. I'm limited when I can go out. I'm in 7 states in the next 2 weeks. So I'm like, don't book me. I'm not cheap, just supply and demand. But
and most of your clients,
I
are they in the roofing side of the industry?
No, they're all over the map. I mean, yeah, like I'm on Monday, I'm in Florida, actually. I'll be in your neck of the woods. Well, I go to Florida 3 times this month, or this 3 weeks. So Monday I'm in San Marco, or Marco Island or something like that. I don't know where it is. And I'm at an ADT conference, so I'm speaking for a security company, ADT, they're big. And then I go back to Miami, so I'll come say hi. And then I go to RoofCon the week after in Orlando. So I'm going literally San Marcos back to Austin, and then I go to Cali, and then I go all over the map. But I'll come say hi. You're in Miami, right?
I use Miami because it's the point on the map that everybody's familiar with, but I'm actually in the West Palm Beach area. So, but yeah,
Okay, cool.
as a matter of fact, I've got this podcast, and then I've got one more podcast that's scheduled after this, and then I'm jumping in the truck heading down to a Miami Marlins game today.
Have fun. Yeah. So I'm speaking a lot and helping companies. I do a lot of on-sites where I just kind of dive into their business, and I help the sales guys. I'm willing to get in the trenches to where it's like, let's go on a deal together, let's go knock together, or let's go on a call together, or hey, let's reframework your business, where structuring your pay scales to finance, like to how you're pricing things. A lot of companies I go to, they're way underpricing things, and they're just pricing themselves out of the market. And I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you charging so little? And how do I help them all see it from a new frame and sell it at a higher margin? And, how do I bring top talent in? Because they're like, I can't seem to find good sales reps. I'm like, that's BS, dude. Like, we have a recruiting summit. This would be a big one coming up in September 23rd through the 26th in Austin, Texas, that we're hosting, where we have 100 people coming. I think we have like 20 seats left. And basically, we're going to teach recruiting for 3 days. It's a big under-taught system, and it's been one of my strengths is recruiting. Is I was a freaking shark when it came to going and just getting talent, and that's how I grew my teams. So anyway, we can help with a lot of different things, but I would just say hit us up on Instagram or the website, the D2D Experts. My name's Sam Taggart, the Sam Taggart. I'll pop up, and here to serve.
Water mitigation, mold remediation. Obviously, we're not knocking on doors, right? So what can companies like ours do to, number one, generate more sales? Let's start there, right? And I would argue, and again, so I probably could get some pushback from a lot of the other guys. I would argue cash deals. I love the cash deals. And there's plenty of them out there, right? You don't always have to go through insurance. The homeowner can go through insurance. The commercial property owner, they can go through insurance. That doesn't mean that you have to go through insurance. So do you have any ideas, any concepts, any tips or tricks that restoration companies can use to go out there, get them out of obscurity, let them be the person that, hey, they get the phone call in the event? What would you recommend for a company that's in that niche?
Well, there's 3 strategies that you could take. Obviously, one's going to insurance agents and being kind of the key guys, and different home warranty and home inspections, and there's all sorts of those kind of avenues, right? But the one that a lot of people don't understand is what if you did more of a service plan, and you could be more like a pest control company, and I can go to all homes and take a proactive approach, and I can do some kind of maintenance, repair, I am a contractor, right? So it's let me use my contractorness while I'm down and bored and do smaller jobs, so that I build these relationships, so that when catastrophic events happen, I am the guy, and I built a funnel list. And so, I created a text campaign funnel system called vanillamessage.com. That's one of the software companies we built. And it's basically text automation. So what I do is data right now is king. And so if I can go knock doors or make calls and just, no storm, no damage, nothing's happened to this homeowner, but I guarantee you, I'm buying a flip right now. I need a freaking kitchen, and I need flooring, and I need window. I need all sorts of stuff right now. And if you were to come to my house and be like, hey, let me be your contractor, I'd be like, sweet. I've been trying to freaking figure out a plumber and a drywall guy. And just having that approach of, there is so much opportunity for home improvement and business out there, even though your title might be restoration and fixing for mold and things like that. It's how do you just go do a little value add, or a little service, or a little maintenance, or a little tune up on their HVAC, a little tune up on their plumbing, a little tune up on their roof, or whatever that looks like.
Something
like,
as simple
cool.
as showing them, but like, hey, Miss Susie, do you know where your emergency shutoff valve is in case if there's a flood? Something simple. I mean, like really something as simple as saying, hey, let me show you exactly, you know, we've had some of your neighbors here, like Susie just down the street. She just recently had a flood. I don't know if you were aware of that or not, but yeah, so the reason why she's got so much damage, she didn't know how to turn off the water. So we're just going around the neighborhood and we're talking to each and one of your neighbors and we want to show you where this is at. Oh, by the way, this is a little label I'm going to put on it with my company logo, company name. It's got a little QR code. It's got all my information. In the event, God forbid, I hope you never have to use it, but boom, here it is. And now you've got a piece of your marketing in this person's house. And it took you no time. And most people don't know. Like most homeowners, I know it's sad to say, most people don't know how to turn off their water, like their main water to their house, you know? This is a simple little hack that you can use. But again, it involves being out there and being proactive instead of reactive to the marketplace.
Yeah.
Dude, I had a garage door company that I helped that literally knocked doors and put stickers on the garage doors. That's all they did. They're like, we're just putting we're stickering your garage. So when your garage door goes out, we're going to be the person you call because right here, we got you. And do we need to tighten it up a little bit? Okay, we'll tighten it up, but when you need it, like, that was it.
Yep. And all of a sudden, but it's weird because nobody wants to put in that effort because you can't, it's very difficult to tie in for the first 3 months, sometimes 6 months, maybe even longer, depending on what your sales cycle is, for you to see an ROI on that effort that you just made.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's where a lot of people get lost. They're like, you know what? I'll just sit back and just wait for the deals to come to me. So one last thing, when was it that you kind of became like this personality for other companies? Like how did you do that? Like, did you just start posting a lot of content on social media? Were you that much of a mover and shaker within your industry that your name just kind of got out there? Like, what did you do? Did it happen on accident, or did you actively like put together a game plan to become the D2D expert?
Dude, this was not my plan, actually. I was a mover and shaker in sales in Utah is it's a big tech center, and it's also a big door-to-door center, and it's a big network marketing center. Like, it's a big hub. You have a lot of entrepreneurs here, and I'd done really well, and I was the VP of sales of a solar company, and I had a vision to just help unify, up-level, and bring honor and integrity to this space. And so I was like, hey, I should put on a conference. And it was like, I was still the VP and I was going to just throw this neutral event. And everybody was like, you're just going to recruit us. You're just going to recruit us. And I was like, no. I'm not trying to recruit you. I just want to throw an event where we share best practices and we help each other. And nobody was believing it. So the first door-to-door con was January 2018. And so summer of 2017, I'm starting to promote this, right? And I'm like, hey, we need to do this event. Except I wasn't getting much traction and buy-in because they felt like it was a Trojan horse for them to come work for me. And so come November, I just kind of was like, I went to the owner. I was like, dude, I'm torn. I'm putting this event on. I'm committed to helping these people, and nobody's listening. So I got to quit. And he was like, you're an idiot. Like, I'd started this podcast, and I was like, I'm going to help. Like, it was really just to give back, and I was just going to stay as the VP, right? And I had a really cush job. I was making great money. And through this event, I had to quit because I felt like my mission was bigger purpose than just making money. And one of my coaches comes to me and he's like, how are you going to make money on this event? Are you making money? I was like, no. Well, how you quit? You don't make money. And I was like, well, I got money. I was like, well, what are you going to do? I was like, that's a good point. So I put a mastermind together like literally day one of the 2-day conference. And I was like, well, I got to sell this tomorrow, I guess, and see if I can't sell something. And so I sold this mastermind, and we sold, and it went well. And I was like, wow, people actually want me to help them. And
how much was the mastermind?
$30,000. I was like, dude, he's like, I was going to charge like $6,000. I'm on stage. I never sold from stage. I never I didn't even know what I was going to speak on. I was so freaking going to throw up. I had 800 and something people show up my first year. And I didn't know what I was going to speak on because I was so busy trying to plan the freaking event. I had like 20 vendors and 800 and some people there. And I was like, crap, I forgot to prepare my speech. So I like meditate. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to get up there and I'm just going to speak from the heart. And then at the end, I'm going to bring up this $30,000 mastermind and hopefully somebody signs up. And I'm like, run to the back of the room. And then I'm still the MC, right? Like, and here comes our next speaker. Like, it's like, fetch. And wait, but don't not like. and I'm just like awkward. I'm like, okay, please, like somebody sign up. Don't embarrass me. Like at least get one person to sign up. And I think I had like 7 people sign up. And I was like, what? I made money. And anyway, so I started this little group, and now I have like 70 CEOs in it. We're all doing cool stuff now, and it's been 3-4 years, and and so I was honestly expecting to fail and just go right back to selling solar. And I was like, well, at least like I got this event on its track record. And now we're moving on to our 5th year come January, and we'll have a couple thousand people there. It's a big event, big speakers, and anybody in this industry should go. It's a very beautiful conference. We have Tom Billio, Jim Quick, Jesse Itzler, Tim Story, a lot of cool speakers this year coming up. And anyway, so and then I was like, I guess I'm doing a mastermind. And then people started calling me. They're like, hey, will you come train my company? I'm like, yeah. They're like, how much? I was like, I don't know. I do it for free. It sounds fun. My mom's like, my mom's like, you're not doing that for free. I was like, oh, really? Like, okay. And she's like, and I was like, she's like, how much you charge? I was like, $1,000. She's like, that's how much your plane ticket costs, you idiot. I was like, I know. And it's just like, so I've learned that's why I was like, I've grown over the years, just kind of trying to add value. My mission is I'm going to provide so much value and change your life so much that you're happy paying me. That's it.
Right. And in our industries, for the most part, like really, what is 30,000? Sounds like a lot, but it's not a lot. Like for most businesses, it's nothing. If one of your salespeople just closed one more project, like it just paid for itself, right? So one of the things so one of the things I've been advocating a lot for contractors and entrepreneurs is to take control of their marketing. I'm a firm believer that you should. The big players, they have in-house marketing, right? Because they can pivot faster, they can move with the market a lot faster, they can go ahead and from concept to execution a lot faster. You have much better control. And that's something I've been advocating a lot is, take control of what it is that you're doing, right? But then there's this like a certain segment of the population. So I have a Google Ads domination course, right? For some reason, everything that I do is like domination. So, and it's specifically geared for contractors and entrepreneurs in our space to go ahead and break into the marketing aspect of things. And for some reason, there's a certain portion of the people who are like, oh my God, but that's so much money. I'd rather just go ahead and pay, this ABC marketing firm. It's like, yeah, but that ABC marketing firm has 50 more guys like you. So how many hours a day are you actually getting on your marketing? Like not a lot. And once you go ahead and go through my program, like number 1, the program pays for itself. But number 2, you have that knowledge forever. Number 3, now you can go ahead and give that to your own in-house team that can execute on ideas that much faster. So people have this, and you could always tell the difference between a good entrepreneur and a great entrepreneur, because a great entrepreneur is going to be asking questions, is willing to go ahead and pull out his credit card for that coaching, for that mentorship. And that's important. I mean, in your opinion, how important is mentorship? It's huge, isn't it?
It's crazy. I look at like, had I not had that mentor tell me to sell the $30,000 thing at the thing, the first year, like I would have just been broke out of that event and probably gone back and sold solar. Like to pay it off to have a freaking coach, like that one conversation, having a coach in my corner, or it paid off to have somebody, I've gone through many masterminds and like, dude, I was reminiscing on this because I sell masterminds now and I sell big coaching and XYZ. And I was like, well, I had one dude I met in a mastermind that I've given him like $400,000. And he's like, just keep sending me money. And I was like, oh, okay. That 400,000 turned into 2 million because he just happens to be really good at crypto. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, was the $30,000 I spent on the mastermind anything in comparison to the relationship I built, let alone, the mentors that I've had and, just into marketing, into like pivoting, even Cleveland Investor. And I joined a mastermind he was part of, and he's now throwing an event with me. Like, I'm just like, me and him co-hosted an event, and it's like, that's dope. Like, we're doing business together.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like, absolutely.
Yeah. Like, it's just, there's so much that comes from having good relationships with people that you feel you can aspire to be like, learn from, and instead of just trying to figure it out on your own. Like, that's why I say Streets Academy. It's like, Street Smarts is, there's one of the hacks is don't, like, the smart salespeople, they're so slippery. They know how to manipulate all the things to just shortcut their way to success. Right. So it's kind of like, okay, one of the slippery things you can do is hack the mentor.
Yep.
instead of being like, hold on. And like, I even think of Google as a mentor sometimes. You're like, wait. I don't have to go through all of the biological like course for the next 6 months. I just need to know how to search the biological questions I have when I'm studying bio in Google. Like that's my mentor right now.
Yep.
You know, or it's just like, why not have people that already can shortcut your way to success and save you so much money and time? Because like that's the game of life. Like, it's just being smarter on how you find information instead of being like, I don't know. I don't know what to do. I can't figure it out. I can't see why we don't make money. I can't see why I can't be successful. I'm like, it's out there. You got to go pay to make it happen.
Right. So if there was one thing that you could do differently, if you had to restart this whole career thing again, right? What's the one thing that you would do differently that you think would get you, what would you tell your younger self once you were embarking on this whole journey?
I'm reading a book right now that was just like, life unfolds how life is supposed to unfold. And we just need to surrender how that is supposed to be. And that attachment to where we should be this way and expect it to be this way is what creates unfulfillment. And so I've been on this weird trip around the hour to tell the older self, I'm like, good job, as I would tell them. As I would say, appreciate and don't beat yourself up so much for where you are at that journey in life. You know, I think that new entrepreneur, the guy that I was going to be back then, expecting XYZ, and I've pivoted 50 different times and created products that failed and some that won. And you know what I mean? And looking back, I'm like, good work, dude. You gave it your all. I don't think, you know, like appreciate the spot that you're in today and stop stressing about it has to look some way, because if you get attached, it has to look this way. All of a sudden, 4 years down the road, you're like, looks nothing like I expected it to look. So good job. Just keep doing it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's the entrepreneurial advice right there. It's like, just if you keep pursuing your mission and stay in alignment with that mission and you don't do anything stupid out of alignment, then appreciate the spot and journey in which you're in. If you're 10 years in business, it's like, wow, you've got a name, maybe you've got, you know, people that are supported and been there for 3-4 years that have automated just like everything. Like, how cool. Like, and don't get so stressed on like, you have to be certain way. And the advice I'd give him would just be like, loosen a little bit. Just like, don't be so uptight about it has to look a certain way.
Right. And then besides the ABCs of closing, what would be your top book recommendations that you feel every entrepreneur should have in their library?
Entrepreneur person. I love the book Awareness by Anthony DeMello. It's my favorite book. And it has a lot to do with the philosophy I just said. And it is so awakening of just this, you know, letting go of attachment, waking up. Like, you know, so many entrepreneurs, they're so obsessed that that their life becomes entrepreneurship, where I think of lifeness is the word I like to coin. It's life and business. Yeah, they're intertwined, but if business takes over life, it's just, why are you doing it? Like, what's the hurry? What's the race? Headed, you know, in 10 years, cool. You've got a $100 million company, you're still unhappy, like, cool. Like, you know what I mean? Like, congrats, dude. So it's like, for me, I'm like, wake up and run your business and be successful and pursue it, but not in cost of being happy.
That's amazing. Well, Sam, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I think that we could have gone for at least another 2 hours, probably.
I know. Great.
But thank you so much. Again, if anybody wants to reach out to you, the best place to go is website or Instagram. Which one?
Yeah, Instagram's probably the best. Or, you know, at the Sam Taggart. I'm super responsive on my DMs. Or our website, the D2D Experts, and support. You know what I mean?
Awesome, Sam. Well, definitely reach out to your boy. I mean, again, you just heard it. And again, you've heard it time and time again. Mentorship, coaching, shortcut it. Guys, go ahead and shortcut your journey. You know, if Sam is a good fit for you, go ahead and reach out either on his Instagram or check him out, you know, on his website. And again, stay tuned for next time.
You've been listening to Restoration Domination, interviewing the restoration business's top industry insiders, the movers and shakers, the hustlers and hackers. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. Hook up with us on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Restoration Domination to catch video interviews, highlights, and behind-the-scenes content. And follow your host at Rico Garcia Jr. Till next time, this is Restoration Domination. Hustle, hack, dominate.